Welcome back to The Big Deal. Electric vehicles are a flashpoint in this election year. As Democrats continue to promote their environmental benefits, Republicans are pointing to a negative effect on the U.S. auto industry by electric vehicles. And while EVs have a smaller carbon footprint, the price tag on them remains much higher than their gas-powered counterparts. The costs vary from under $30,000 to well over $100,000. But EV drivers tend to save more on fuel and maintenance costs over time. They also qualify for federal tax credits as well as state and local buying incentives. All around the nation, California, Florida, Texas, they lead the charge in their number of total electric vehicle registrations. And over the last 9 years, investments in electric vehicles and EV battery manufacturing has grown to $188 billion and has created 195,000 jobs. And both of those numbers are significantly boosted by the passage of the Inflation Reduction Act 2 years ago. The Biden administration is spending billions of dollars to accelerate the transition to electric vehicles, but sales aren't growing as fast as they once were. Spectrum News reporter Reuben Jones has more on the state of the EV industry in this report.
It was a milestone moment. VinFast, a Vietnamese automaker, broke ground last July on a massive investment in North Carolina and the U.S. A $4 billion factory outside of Raleigh that would employ 7,500 people and initially build 150,000 electric vehicles a year. But today, there's a question of when the factory may open. Production was originally supposed to begin this year, then was put off to 2025. And recently, the company told Reuters production was pushed to 2028, saying ongoing economic headwinds and uncertainties in different macro economies and the global EV landscape necessitate a more prudent outlook for the rest of the year.
VinFast isn't the only automaker delaying its production of electric vehicles. Ford pushed back the start of 2 electric vehicles, and Toyota reportedly postponed the production of its EVs in the U.S.
Last year, EV sales soared 47%, but the increase fell to 3% in the first quarter of this year, and the EV market share dropped a little to just over 7%.
The early adopters have adopted. Now you have to get in the mass market mover.
Joe McCabe from Auto Forecast Solutions says some car buyers are concerned about the cost of EVs, the still limited range of most EVs before recharging, and the expanding but still limited number of charging stations. Electric vehicles have also become politically divisive, as some Republicans say EVs are being forced on Americans. There are some encouraging signs for electric. Legislation passed in Congress will increase the number of charging stations, and the cost of EVs is expected to continue falling. Electric vehicles may still be the future. It's just the road to get there will be longer than some expected.
So we have always been the camp of decades for this.
In Washington, Reuben Jones, Spectrum News.
Joining me now to talk more about electric vehicles is Mike Murphy, a former top advisor to Senator John McCain, who specializes in the issue and runs the nonprofit EV Politics Project, which tries to counter misinformation about electric cars. Great to be with you, Mike. And tell me, why are so many Republicans so hesitant or even hostile towards electric vehicle adoption?
Well, unfortunately, electric vehicles have been caught up in our polarized politics. They've been politicized, and that's for 2 reasons. We've done a lot of polling on this. The first reason is originally the first wave of electric vehicles were sold with a heavy environmental push. And that is, believe it or not, in American politics, very divisive. Climate change is not something a lot of Republicans are nearly as worried about as Democrats. So they're seen as these virtue signaling Biden mobiles. The interesting thing is, and when we ask people what you like best about electric vehicles, the 2 top answers are no paying for gas, 1,000 or 2,000 a year, and less maintenance, and they drive fast and all those things. And on those attributes, Republicans and Democrats are the same. But Democrats are buying them at 3 times the rate Republicans are, because Republicans trip over the fight over whether or not you're making an environmental statement with an EV. We found the use case of EVs, the driving, the no gas and everything, is a much stronger selling point than the environmental stuff. And that's a lesson we've been sharing with the industry.
Absolutely. In fact, my aha moment came when I realized you wouldn't have to go for oil changes every couple of months, and you wouldn't have to do the annual inspection But let me ask you about Donald Trump's platform includes ending what he calls an electric vehicle mandate, but there is no such thing. I mean, he's referring to, I think, the most recent regulations passed by the Environmental Protection Agency that require automakers to comply with pollution limits. And one way that they're expected to do that is by selling EVs and lower emission hybrids. What is behind this attack and this talk about a non-existent mandate?
Well, it's a scare tactic, and frankly, the refining industry has put millions of dollars into pushing it, even with television ads. We have a fact check thing on evpolitics.org. I encourage people to go to get the real scoop. And I think President Trump has kind of fallen for the hook, line, and sinker, I should say, for the misinformation there. Ironically, it's reported that Donald Trump used to own a Tesla Roadster too. So I'm not sure he ever drove it. He would probably be softer on EVs. But yeah, that's one of the big scare tactics, and it's simply not true.
Okay, no. We looked at some of the states with the largest EV investments, and it turns out that 4 of them are actually key swing states, including Georgia, Michigan, North Carolina, Nevada. That can't just be a coincidence, I imagine.
Well, yeah, but those Rust Belt states, particularly Michigan and Wisconsin and also Georgia, are, they're the key, as you say, swing states, and they're manufacturing states. Interestingly, 2/3 of the electoral college votes that will pick the president, from the 5 swing states, 2/3 of those are cast by big EV investment states. There are 30,000 new EV manufacturing jobs in Michigan, 40,000 in Georgia, and they're the best kept secret in our economy now. So we're bipartisan, but we're encouraging the candidates to recognize that. We're going to be running our own television ads, making those jobs famous, because I think we want to make EVs, which are very good for American manufacturing, a popular thing in the campaign that both candidates ought to embrace.
Okay. Now, to give our viewers a taste of what they're hearing out there, Trump has recently changed the way that he's talking about EVs. We've got comments from 2 separate rallies. This is just 11 days apart. Take a look at this.
Who wants to drive an electric car for the rest of your life? Does anybody? You don't want to drive for 45 minutes and then stop for 3 hours. Is that what you said?
I've had them. I've driven them. They're incredible. But they're not for everybody. Some people have to drive long distances.
So there you have it. Does this friendlier stance perhaps have anything to do with support from Elon Musk for Donald Trump? Elon Musk, of course, the CEO of Tesla.
Yeah, I would not be surprised. Donald Trump is anything if not transactional. So I think he might be open for business. But the bottom line is, we're going to set a record this year in EV sales. We set a record last year. We're going to exceed it this year. The only question is how fast it's moving. And the reason it's important for America is right now the Chinese make 3 times as many cars nearly as we do in the United States. We really don't want an adversary like China to have 85% of worldwide auto manufacturing under their control in 20 years. That's very bad for America, bad for our national security. And EVs are the future wave. So we've got to get on the side of people and our allies who manufacture here in America, companies like Volkswagen and like Ford.
Okay. Thanks very much, Mike. Thank you for watching our YouTube channel. Let Spectrum News be your resource for balanced, in-depth political coverage, and click the subscribe button right here. You can also download our app or watch us on TV to learn more about the candidates, where they stand on the issues, and more. We'll see you then.